Gentrification is.
Gentrification is.
Gentrification is.
Gentrification.
Gentrification is.
Gentrification is.
Gentrification is
Gentrification is.
Gentrification is
the process of making a person or activity more refined or positive.
the renovation of a broken down neighborhood to please the taste of middle class.
The process of rebuilding and recreating a district or an area to comply with the standards of those who have more wealth than the people who was originally living there.
Is the removal of lower class by improving communities for those of higher class.
People with money come to a bad area and rebuild, pushing out all the lower class people.
Is what people call the renovation of communities to better support the middle class.
The upheaval of bad, broken down neighborhoods and renovating it for where it can suit the middle class tastes or upper class, if you will.
It's renovating a district or community to better fit the taste of the middle class. The displacement of residents of a certain community and the changing of their culture due to influence from outside vendors and outsiders of the community itself.
Is the renovation of a district, a community, or an area to better fit the upper middle class.
However, it's more so like displacement of poor families or lower middle class families, whatever you'd like to call them, and turning it into something where the upper middle class or higher class are able to benefit from and thrive off of.
Gentrification is really, really bad because it steals people's homes, because it makes them unaffordable, and it pushes whole communities and cultures out of neighborhoods that they so belong in.
I think gentrification, the idea is nice of rebuilding a neighborhood and making it better for the community, but I think gentrification has its downfall when it drives people out of the community whose community it was first. I feel like not making it affordable for those who live here in the community is where I think gentrification falls short.
So as far as gentrification in Newark, I've been living in Newark for basically all my life since I was 2 years old. And I can actually attest to the process that Newark is going through. Newark is still going through this process. The process of it coming from being an urban area, suburban area, specifically downtown Newark, there is a lot of gentrification in downtown Newark. The building of the Whole Foods store, that wasn't there about, 5 years ago? That wasn't there 5 years ago.
I think the gentrification in Newark, and specifically in the downtown area, has been great at making the city beautiful, but then it also is starting to drive out these Black-owned businesses who need the money by these big corporations, and particularly in my neighborhood, it makes people who can't afford the housing more apropos to homelessness or finding a place to live, and I think that that is not okay. I don't think that is right. I also think that the gentrification in my neighborhood is a downfall of big corporations and people who don't even know the community or know the integrity of the community, just driving things out without knowing the purpose and the history behind our beautiful city.
Although I do not personally live in Newark, I have been to school there since 6th grade, and I've seen the renovations and the difference of downtown Newark, and I've seen how more middle class are only staying in the downtown area because of how gentrified it is becoming. With these renovations, the prices are rising, making it harder for those who had originally lived in the downtown area to continue living there.
Although I think that the mayor has really good intentions in allowing outside vendors and outside investors to come into the city of Newark to either build a different branch of their work or help with funding for apartment buildings and other things of the sort in order to bring more money into the city and potentially give residents of Newark new job opportunities and housing options. I do believe that the effects of these different projects won't be felt directly by the residents as quickly or as directly as I feel like the mayor would like it to be. I do feel like people who live in neighboring cities or may even live in New York City would be the ones who would benefit the most from these opportunities, especially the housing, because I feel like they would find it easier to commute to New York, as the prices of living in Newark would be much cheaper than actually finding a place in New York City, and it probably would be less competitive. But I do feel like with the residents of Newark, who I feel like the majority of the residents do live on the poverty line or even below the poverty line, will find more struggle in trying to find these options, or they're participating in affordable housing because of the competition from outsiders. And also, being a resident from Newark since childhood, I have a different perspective, seeing that I have grown up in the community and seen the different changes happening right before my eyes, especially if you're looking more so at the downtown region of Newark, with the building of the new Prudential building and the reconstruction or the revitalization of the Haynes and Co. building, which is now more apartment styles and I think office building. I don't really know about that, but yeah, you could see how before there were a lot more smaller shops and there were a lot more just shops that the city of Newark residents would be able to like shop in or like find whatever they needed to. But in order to build that, a lot of the stores that were already there had to be moved or shut down in order to make space for them. And another thing that I feel like is a good thing is the whole that doesn't really benefit the community as directly as it would like to is the building of the Whole Foods downtown next to these buildings, because Whole Foods has been known to have like really high prices and have been not the most affordable for people who may come from like lower income backgrounds. And I do feel like most of the members of the community wouldn't look to Whole Foods as their first option. Not saying that none of them do, but I wouldn't say that's the first line of directions. But I do feel like the people that benefit from the Whole Foods being there the most, again, are the outside members of the work community in Newark now. I also feel like the revitalization of the downtown region has put a halt in the fixing and the building of the inner city communities and the like different infrastructure such as the roads and like different like abandoned housing and like parks and stuff like that, where people who are actually living there, actually live and working there, would need to have fixed sooner rather than later. I feel like those projects are being pushed behind, or I guess are coming in later as the city is focusing on bringing in more money to have those projects started, which I understand the logic behind it. But I feel like the gentrification or the incoming of like different builders and like investors and stuff like that is essentially halting the development of like the actual community and is instead bringing in outsiders.
Although yes, there are some benefits to gentrification, the negative side of it is how bad it harms the residents who have already lived in Newark and how it's changing the history and the shape of Newark.